So thank you very much for the organizers. So I was very excited to be on this panel. So my name is Wirostko. I'm an ophthalmologist. I'm an adjunct professor at the University of Utah and a glaucoma specialist. And what was this question? Okay, so why did I decide to come today? About 10 years ago, I started my own company. I co-founded it with another woman, and we did some things right, we did some things wrong. The company was Jade Therapeutics. We did get a lot of funding, actually through SBIR grants. Mary Cardin and USTAR were a huge help to us. And then we were acquired 2 years ago. So we were merged into a public company, and then I took a position on that public company as a chief medical officer, but I continued to see patients at the University of Utah. Hence my title of adjunct, which makes it really nice because I get to wear a lot of hats. Love to mentor, and I have 2 daughters, and I love the saying that we should raise strong women.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Hu. I'm CEO and the president of a company called Innosis, and what we do is we do electronic design and manufacturing. And prior to this position, I was actually a faculty member. Actually, I was the vice chair of the Department of Electrical Engineering at the University of Utah. And so the reason I'm here is that I felt I have I have some story which is, has its interesting aspects in it. So I'd like to, have the opportunity to share with you, and maybe, some of you benefited from it. Just like Barbara said, we all make mistakes, but some of those mistakes, once you found out you made them and you look back and you realize, maybe it's good to make those mistakes because then you learn, you really learn. So that's why I'm here.
Now it's on. Hi, my name is Claire Roberts, and I'm the CEO of Lice Clinics of America. Yes, that's head lice. No one needs to lean away. No one needs to lean away. So I've been the CEO of this company for 5 years, and I would say that I'm here today because if I can inspire anyone in the room to embrace raising capital, not an evil, horrible task that you have to get done and put behind you, because if you look at it that way, you will not have a sustaining, thriving business that's growing because it's an ongoing, daily task, and you need to embrace it. And when I started with the company, we were out of capital, and we didn't have any sales, and we were down to 5 employees. Today, we're doing $10 million in sales, have 35 employees, 300 clinics, product all over the world, and we're still out of money. So it's an ongoing situation, and I'm raising capital right now. I've now had the pleasure of spending a lot of money to engage an investment banking firm to help me, but the process never ends. So.
They all know why I'm here, so.
That's great, thank you. Okay, so a couple of questions I prepared, and I know you got just a chance to look at them briefly, but when you started the company or when you founded it, how did you start finding the money? What was the first thing that you did? Were you self-funded? Were you going for investors? Were you bank financed? I want to know what you did to start getting the funds in the door. And how did you structure it as well? Whoever would like to go first.
Well, my very first company, when I was only 23, I actually bootstrapped it. So I raised, I think, $23,000 from my uncle and my dad, and I bootstrapped it where I could grow as I could. And then later, when we became a profitable company, I actually raised $2 million to go and develop some software that we needed. And it was my experience with the first time I raised money was I literally got on Google and said, how do you raise money? And it said, write a business plan. I Googled, how do you write a business plan? And it literally found this software called Business Plan Pro by Palo Alto Software for $80, which for me was a lot of money back then. downloaded it, wrote my first business plan, and literally said, who do I send it to? And he gave me names of venture capitalists, and I put a bunch of them in the mail. And that's literally how I raised the first $2 million I got, which was crazy looking back. But more sophisticated after that, but that's literally how I got it.
Perfect. Anyone else want to share how they started funding?
So my co-founder and I had this idea, and I said, what do I do with it? And she said, well, let's start a company. And being an MD and having a business background, it was very eye-opening. We started talking to the University of Utah Tech Transfer office, so if anyone here has that access to a tech transfer, they really like to see ideas, genesis out of research. So we had an incubator lab, and we started applying for grants. We also did family and friends, some seed money, and up to the point that we were acquired, we had raised about $3 million in what's called SBIR grant money. So small business innovative research grants through the Department of Defense, and then also from the National Science Foundation with the help of, I have to sing out Mary Cardin's praises, because it was really because of Mary and USTAR that we got as far as we did.
Very nice. We like Mary.
Hi, so my story is a little bit different. I was a faculty member at the University of Utah. When I started to feel, I really have this strong desire to see what I'm making into someone's heads, see how they are using what I'm working on, what I'm developing, what I'm researching, what I'm inventing. And so I decided to start the business, and I actually wrote a business plan, and just took it around and talked to VC, and I actually got a really good offer, and really quite a few offers. By then, one of my it's kind of a distance family member got hold of this information, and he was investing different technologies. So he basically put a proposal together for us. He said, why don't you do this? Why don't we do this? We'll give you the same amount of money, same amount of valuation, but let me put some family and friends together and don't bother with VC. So that's how I got my initial funding. And fortunately, really fortunately, I made it. I used that money, and I brought the business to profitable, and I have been operating since. However, if I do it again, never do that. It's a risky business, because if I run out of money, if my business plan doesn't go exactly as how I planned, how much money I asked, going with family and friends, I do feel it's a little bit short of having a big resource behind you. And then I want to say a little bit about grant as well. I have been throughout the life of my business, I've been applying a lot of grants. But I always use the grants for me to fund my new ideas. So I've been able to keep, coming up with new ideas and use the grants to pay for it. And then a little bit of advice about bank financing. If you are starting a business, and this business is not known to, once you have the money, it's going to take off, don't ever use bank financing, because bank financing has so many strings. If they get pulled, that's what I'm saying, it's worse than family and friends. Family friends at least put the money out. Bank money, lots of times they can pull the money, and so you are starting your business and you have a situation like that, it could be devastating. So that's my experience.
Thank you for sharing.
Boy, we must know some of the same people. So with regard to this company, I joined when the company was almost bankrupt. So I have kind of a different path with this company in terms of doing a turnaround and raising capital. But sort of along the lines of friends and family, one of the things I inherited was a cap table with about 80 folks on it, most of them who were friends and family of the original founders, which was great because they had been able to reach out, continue to fund, and get FDA approval and develop some products. So I didn't inherit, a nothing. I inherited a company with a great product and a great service to offer. But I would echo the same sentiments that the challenge, it's easier to raise money from friends and family, but the challenge is they don't have a lot of dry powder when you need extra cash. And then feelings get hurt because what happened is we needed to do, basically it's called a pay to play, but they feel that it's a cram down, and the next money in diluted everybody. So where I thought I was a white knight superwoman coming into this bankrupt company as a turnaround specialist, willing to move to Utah, take this company where it needs to go, white knight, every investor looked at me as the enemy. The first time I met with them. And I was shocked because I had never been in that situation before. I'd always been viewed as a turnaround person, as a savior. And I had been hired by the lead investor who did have dry powder. So, he thought I was a white knight, but it did not get me off on the right foot with a lot of local investors and a lot of the original investors. So when you to tie it back to where do you find your original capital, I think it's hard to say don't ever take friends and family money because oftentimes that's all you can get, your own money or your friends and family. But make sure you keep them informed along the way. Make sure they know that, if they aren't going to be ready for round 2 or round 3, that what can happen. Make sure they know going into it what's likely to happen. I will say that other sources of capital, when we were strapped, and if you find yourself in a strapped situation already, because as I often say, startups turn into turnarounds right away. If you find yourself strapped, one of the things we were able to do right away, because we did have sales, is that we reached out to our key vendors who did have a dog in the hunt, who could see the carrot and the upside, and they were able to help finance us with really great extended terms, and also to convert some of their outstanding payables to equity, and we got the board to approve some incentivized valuation levels to let them do that. So be creative. We didn't have the luxury at the beginning of even finding a bank that would later yank it out from us because no bank would finance us. So bank financing is a whole other story, but I think, I guess the lesson learned is be part of the integrity speech. Keep all of your conversations with anyone coming into the company very clear. Even if it's painful to tell them the information up front, it's always better to tell them what might happen if things don't go well.
I don't know, but I will say one thing in defense of the banks. Here's what I was going to say about banks. It's the cheapest money you're ever going to get if you can get it. The issue is that banks don't have the ability to take the same risk a venture capitalist does. So with the banks, it's good to take from them if you are 100% sure you're going to hit your numbers, because it will be the best money you ever took. But you can't miss your numbers. There is no wiggle room there because they have all these regulations they have to live by. So it's the when to take from the bank, I think, is what really matters. Because there's times when, for us, we were a very profitable company and we were able to use the bank's money to buy other companies. And it was the cheapest money I could ever get, which in the end, when we exited, made me a fortune, right? Because I didn't have to give up equity for it. But I never could miss my numbers with the bank. And so it's riskier. For you as an entrepreneur, it's riskier, but it's better if you can hit it. So there's a good and a bad to every type of investor you go to. I agree with everything you said about families. I think it's super risky. To me, a family relationship is never worth it to lose. So I won't risk those ever in my life. That's just something I don't mix business and family because I don't ever want to lose that. But I think that even with the VCs, there's risks there. They're different than a bank. A bank is less likely to come in and try to fire you and push you out. They're just going to take over your, note if you have to, but your VCs could come and push you out. So you really have to know the ups and downs of each different entity you might raise from. There's positives and negatives to all of them.
And I'm just going to add on, so one thing that came up as I'm listening to my colleagues here speak is it's also where you are in your life cycle. So as a startup, you may go to angels. So that's sort of your step above your families and friends. And the other thing is not to discount your vendors and how you can partner. So when we started Jay, we had very little money, and we were really creative, and we still have what we call monopoly money. So one of our vendors actually ran the early animal studies for us, and we gave them equity in the company, and in exchange they did our preclinical models and some of our animal work for free. So it was always the monopoly money, as we called it. But yeah, there's some great collaborative arrangements that you can do with colleagues.
Do you find when you go for grants, is there a disparity like there is for capital? Because we know that in your program, basically 9% of VCs are women, and a lot of the funding go to men-owned companies, and sometimes it's because women don't necessarily apply for it or go for it or go after it. Do you find when you're going for grants, is there any kind of men versus women disparity there?
Like I said, I am in electronic design and manufacturing. So be honest with you, in 20, 30 years of my career, I haven't met a customer is a female. So that's how men dominated in my industry. However, I do want to say, if you know what you are talking, I have never experienced, I have never seen, how I'm treated. Either I'm applying for a grant or I'm trying. I was in front of VC asking for money, or nowadays many I met with customers. I'm always there for every customer. I never see the difference in terms of they, how they would, interact with me different men, therefore interacting with men. And so my, when it comes to applying for grants, first of all, being a woman, I actually own my business, so being a woman-owned business did not give me any benefits or advantage at all, compared to others. However, I just want to say I don't see the other way either. I don't see they are treating me differently. However, I do feel knowing my business, knowing my technology, knowing what I'm offering, it's very, very important. Put out as strong of a message as you need to. Like Amy said, I really believe that it really echoed in my mind. I think be strong. Delivering that message you want to deliver as best as you can, and be the everybody else. It doesn't matter they are woman or man. And just that's how we do it.
So for the SBIR grants in the healthcare field, you do get to check a box that you say you're a woman-owned company, and that does make you a minority for that grant application.
And same for money, is it helpful to have the designation as a woman-owned business or a disadvantaged business? And I don't know if you've had any government experiences with that. Has it helped you at all in any way?
Actually, I'm a whole, I just say that, my business is woman-owned and minority woman-owned actually. And then I also applied for disadvantaged business status, and none of those helped. I think it's because of the industry I'm in. So it's very competitive. It's all about technology. It's all about how you can benefit your customer. And I have lots of defense defense level customers, and then prime contractor type of customers. It just never once I got a contract because it was women. It's always based on merit. So
I would say on the VC side or the investment side, I don't think that it helps or hurts to be a woman, but I will say this, being a woman's never held me back ever, so I've never seen it as a negative. I will say, in total disclosure, when you come into a room for the first time with a group of men tend to give each other instant credibility. Like they instantly think the other man knows what he's talking about. And I will say, as a woman, you have to show that you have credibility. So that's probably the one, it's not so much a disadvantage, as you just have to be smart to know that they don't give you the same, and it's not a dig on the men. I think it's just human nature, right? We all have our little things, we do things to them too. So I feel like that when you come in the room as a woman, you need to come into it knowing part of what you are there to do is let them see that you're not dumb about what you're doing, right? That you do know your numbers, you do know your stats. Like, know your data, even more so as a woman, just so that you can have that moment of them going, oh, okay, she gets it. This is not, well, and you know, it's not a dig on men, because I just think it's how it happens, but I just think it helps show that you know your stuff, and then don't ever let it become an issue after that. Like, you gotta let go of it and just go in and be a person, right? I don't think it helps or hurts.
Sorry, yeah, let me add a little bit to that message. Yeah, I do feel if you are going to engage in any sort of discussion, know your material really, really well and deliver that message of you know that material better than anybody in the room. It's really important. If there's an area you don't know, then really try to make sure, you know, you either bring someone else to talk about that portion, or you prepare yourself to deliver a message of you know what's going on. However, you do have people to be able to, you know, take care of whatever that, you know, area of question is. But really, I think it's knowing your material, you know, just really knowing your material. And if you do deliver that message of you know your material, woman actually has the advantage of we can say things other people, you know, the men probably won't say. Like I would say, I love the work is easy. Our men would never say that, even if it's ourselves in person or this is one person. But we can say things showing how you swim and showing how, you know, passionate we are about what we are talking about. So anyway, that's kind of my experience.
$87 million was financed last year, or funded last year from venture capitals. Of that, only 32% were women. What do you think we can do to A, get more of that financing to women-owned companies, and B, what do you think that we can do to change that mindset to make that happen more for women and for companies to, or venture capitals to give to more women?
Well, you'll know the answer to that better than I do. You know, this isn't going to really answer your question directly. I guess it's just as my observation that, you know, not every business really is a venture capital financeable business. It doesn't mean you have a bad business, and I don't know if anyone's run the data to see if women are taking CEO positions or starting companies that are going to be unicorn companies. And you know, it's partly a numbers game. Men have been CEOs of companies and starting companies a lot longer than we have. And so, you know, I do think there are lots of avenues for raising capital that are not just through VCs. And I meet a lot of men along my journey who are CEOs of all different stages of companies who also have companies that are not financeable by VCs. And so I think it's just, we need to always be careful not to just blame it on the VCs or think that that's a defeatist, not defeatist attitude, but that we should, you know, that it's the VCs that have to change, or there may need to be more women VCs to give us money. Smart women VCs aren't going to give my company money either. A smart family house female decision maker will invest in our company because of the kind of growth and returns. A smart banker will, a smart PE firm will, but not a smart VC. So you really need to know what your target of who your investor is, what kind of returns you can give, and hone in on that, which doesn't answer your question about VC money into women businesses.
So one interesting thing that comes to mind is my co-founder and I. So I took the role as Chief Scientific Officer. She took the role as Chief Operations Officer, and we thought we needed a man to be the CEO. And we brought in a gentleman who we thought would raise money because he had been in a VC before, and he could not tell the story like we could. And we ended up actually firing him after 2 years. And a woman who's a friend of mine who sits on a VC said, Laura, you should have just been the CEO from the beginning. Why did you not think you couldn't do it? And it always resonates with me, and I share that with these women out here who think that they can't do it, because you can. You can tell the story the best. You're passionate about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a couple of answers I'll give. One, women tend to not actually raise as much for their companies because they do tend to run them more responsibly, and they don't spend as much. They tend, their personalities are more, do it as I can afford to do it. And it's really true. We've seen this over and over again. There's so many successful women-led companies out there that no one even knows about because they never did raise funding, because they've done it as they could. A friend of mine started a business out of her garage, never raised funding, and just sold it recently for $60 million, right, with no funding. I mean, that's happening a lot more with women, and those are not getting reported because no one gathers that data, because there is no tracking mechanisms in place to see who's doing that. So that's one of the things we've seen. The other thing we've seen is exactly what she just brought up. Women tend to self-select out of leadership positions. Men are not afraid to come and ask. The reason, and this is just coming from a CEO with a lot of employees, the women in the company never asked for raises, right? It was the men that would ask for the raise. Because, and this is to our disadvantage, as women, we're like, oh, it's just like with our husbands, right? I'm not going to tell you that it's my birthday. I want you to remember, because then I'll know you really love me. And if you got the exact right gift and read my mind, then I know you really love me. That's why we're not going to tell you what gift we want for our birthday. Dumbest thinking ever, ladies. If we think about it logically, we will never get what we want this way, right? And the same thing happens at work. The very same dynamic. Women tend to be like, well, I just want my boss to notice me on their own, because then it's going to mean more when they come to me with a raise. No, they're not going to. So we got to get over that as women. We got to be willing to say, these are the things I've done that, I think that I'd like to be considered for a raise. You don't have to be a jerk about it. You don't have to be pushy or bullish about it. You can still be a girl and be successful. And so I think that's another reason why women don't take the leadership role. They bring in a man as a CEO because they think that he'll be better than them. We discount ourselves so much as women, and that's the biggest mistake I think that we can make. But I also think it's because oftentimes, and this is again, not a dig on women, but I think a lot of times when the women are out to raise venture capital, they tend to not be willing to listen because they're already in the defensive mode. They're already feeling defensive and insecure, so they tend to try to get all, fight back or have the answers, and then it doesn't breed confidence. So that's something we're going to have to work on. And finally, I'd say, if you look at the companies raising capital, most of these companies, and especially your unicorns, they're tech companies. When I started a tech company at 23, I was like one of the only women in technology. Like the only other girls at Comdex were booth babes that were hired by the other companies to be on. I'm walking the floor going, there's no other women here. It was like this total, what's happening, right? I didn't know women weren't in technology. Until we start to get more of our young women to go into technology fields, we probably won't have the increase in the venture capital, because that's where most of the VC money is going, is those bigger returns that are faster, right? The 3 to 5 year returns go. And the women are starting lifestyle businesses, which don't lend themselves to VCs. When I go to the college competitions, most of the companies pitched by women are something to do with something for their children or something for other women or whatever. They're not thinking about tech, which is actually, in my opinion, unfortunate, because women are so good at design and technology. They have the best ability to do the user experience and design that. And it's a very creative position in tech, but we're not promoting that for young women as something they should go into. And until we start to push more women to look at technology, and they think of it as a stereotypical bunch of sweaty guys in the back room programming, and that is not all that exists. That does exist in tech, but that is not all that tech is. That whole relationship between customer and company and being able to translate information and into what could be wonderful user experiences, that's what women are the best at. And they are phenomenal leaders. Women are naturally phenomenal leaders. So I feel like it's kind of a multi-pronged answer there, but I think a lot of those things all contribute to why we don't see more money. There is one on the government side, you asked about the government side, but there is new funds that are cropping up across the country that are focused on trying to find women businesses. But I will tell you the number of women we see come through our door versus men, it very much leads to why you're not seeing more deals getting done. And the apologizing thing, the acting like I'm going to have kids and I might not be a serious business for I have 2 kids, they can't go work every day with me. I figured it out, right? So I think that's another issue.
That's good. So, unless you had more to add, okay, ready to move on? Okay, very good. I'm going to shift gears just a little bit and shift from money just to simple entrepreneur, experience. And again, this is, trials and tribulations, things you wish you may have done differently or things you did right. And so think about people who dream of entrepreneurship. Sometimes it's, this wonderful dream of being able to have your own schedule and, being your own boss and you're laughing. I just want to know, when you first started and you thought that entrepreneurship was this wonderful thing, as we do, and sometimes we still do, I've been at it for 15 years, you're still, you're living the dream, right? But I want to know some memories that come to mind of things that maybe you would have wished that you had done a little bit differently in your business. Who would like to tell us your dirty laundry right now?
I just don't want to talk to you about personal. Well, look, okay. Yeah, we all laughed because anyone who's been an entrepreneur knows that you have no life. Like, that is your life, right? So let's just get honest about that. I think if I could go back, I love being an entrepreneur, mostly because I have more confidence in myself leading me than somebody else, which sounds terrible, but it's kind of true, right? You know how hard you work, and you don't know how hard the person above you is going to work. So there is a little bit of that goes on that drives you to entrepreneurship. But the second you take $1, even $1 from anyone, you are no longer your own boss. I don't care if they only own 2% of your company, you have a boss. I don't care if it's a bank that you took a loan from, you have a boss. So when you take money, the concept of I'm my own boss, it's kind of a misnomer, because you really aren't your own boss, right? Even if you have customers, they're your boss. I mean, let's be honest. It's whoever's funding the company at the end of the day. So I think, but what entrepreneurship gives you is this ability to be in charge and make the decisions, right? And it lets you kind of have the opportunities to let other people, like, surround yourself with who you want to work with. It's going to be the team you want to have. There's some really positives. But looking back, if I could have done anything different, I think, first of all, I would have not assumed I was not smarter than I was. Like, I think when I was especially young, you tend to discount yourself. And I would always hold back, thinking, well, I'm not smart enough, they're smarter than me. You come to learn, though, a lot of people around you are not as smart as you are. And that sounds really terrible, but it's actually really true. You'll be in rooms with people that you're like, well, they're way more experienced, so I should listen to them. Take people's advice, but go with your gut and go with what you think is the right thing, because then at least you're going to die on your own sword and you can feel good knowing you did that. But I also think I would have had a little bit more faith that things were going to work out in the end and not made everything an emergency. I think as an entrepreneur, everything is a dire emergency, and you end up making trade-offs in your family life that you wouldn't have made otherwise, right? Like, this has to get done, this has to get done. And I wish I could go back, I would have had more confidence to say, even if it doesn't get done tonight, it's going to work out. Like, people are going to be more patient with you if you tell them, I had a kid's soccer game that was really important, I needed to be there, could I get another day to get this contract done? You'd be surprised how much people are willing to work with you when you just ask them. And so I think I wish I would have more confidence to do that, so that I didn't miss out on as many things here and there that I do regret now, because that's the one thing you will regret the most, is the time with your family, to be honest. And so I wish I had more confidence, because I think as I got more mature in it, I found people were so patient about that. It's just that I had never asked.
Yeah, so when I was asked to fill in or provide a biography or a blurb about myself as a panelist, and I agonized over the very last paragraph where you're supposed to indicate that you live in Park City with your husband and your kids and your dogs and you love to hike. Instead of lying and saying that on mine, I put on mine, no spouse, no kids, no pets, no plants. I work all the time. And I'm always amazed when people say that they have all this life. I didn't eliminate friends, because I do have a few friends. But I do think that I often find myself in a situation where I'm a little embarrassed to admit that all I do is work. So this isn't a group therapy session for me, although that is part of the reason I came, by the way, is to tell you all my trials and tribulations. But in fact, my staff is like, they're never going to get you off the stage. You're just going to sit up there and tell them. But no, in all seriousness, I guess what I've learned along the way is to try not to be embarrassed about that. I really love working a lot. I try not to impose that on my team and my staff. Over the years, I have found that I'm the one that has to self-regulate. I don't send them emails in the middle of the night. I write them, but I don't send them till the morning because it makes them feel guilty. I kick them out of the office. We have a sort of a no man left behind kind of theory in our office. I don't let them stay later than me, but I will kick them out, particularly on Fridays at 5 o'clock, and I don't want them to feel that they have to devote their whole life to work just because I do.
Then she secretly comes back to the office and
But I really like working, and along the way of my life and my journey, I had to just sort of accept that and realize I guess I am an anomaly. I would make a terrible wife or girlfriend or mother, but I think I make a pretty good boss because I try to create an environment and a family at work where people come to work in my companies, and this is my 5th turnaround, knowing that when they come to work, what they do at work matters. I like to give them a lot of space. I like to do, it's just a variety of things. But if they're my most important thing, I think they can tell. And so I guess I would say if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to decide along the way how much of your life you want to devote to it. Because if you really do want to have a very balanced life, you're going to need to hire a lot of really good, strong people to do a lot of the heavy lifting and go the extra mile for you. Because you won't start a company, and it won't be a rocket ship, and it won't do all the things you want to do without the effort put in. Someone has to put the time in. And if you don't want it to be you and you want to be the visionary, that's great. Or you can be the workhorse, or you can be both.
Passing the baton here. So you bring up a very, very key point. And I think the difference is between work and career, because it's no longer work, it's really your passion. It becomes, it's all consuming. And having a husband, having kids, having the dog, trying to multitask, I can't tell you how many times my kids are like, okay, where are you today? What job are you doing? What's going on? You do have to set boundaries, because it can become all-consuming. And I also found the same, I have to be very careful, because I'm the same way. I turn off my computer, but I continue to write those emails, and my poor employees on Monday morning just get bombarded. But employees see you working, and they're gonna look up to you, and they're gonna try to keep up with you as well. And you need to set the environment where you're respectful of their time, because you don't want them to feel bad that they're not answering that email on a Saturday night at 7 o'clock, just because you happen to be on email.
Okay, I'm here to give a different story about this same topic. I actually personally feel the day I actually got the office space and start my business, I become my own boss. I have the freedom, and I can set my own schedule. And the way I do it, it's not like I'm less busy, but the way I do it is, I manage to schedule myself around my kids. My kid, when I started my business, the younger one was 6. And so there was still a little bit of this, when he get out of school, somebody, need to be there, type of thing. And I do have a good nanny, but it was actually a conscious decision I made. It's every day. I get to work, I work as hard as I can, as effectively as I can. And so I can get out around 2:45. So I was there when he got out of school. And we always have a really nice walk in the neighborhood. And then I'll get back to work. We start to walk for an hour and a half, and we talk. And to this date, my son is in California and UC Berkeley. So when I go visit him, we do the same thing. This time around, he get out of school, and I was there waiting for him to go to work. But yeah, so really, I feel, one thing about being an entrepreneur, it's the ability of controlling your own life. And so you really need to take advantage of that. So like, my sister sometimes, they live in, my sisters, they live in California. And they would say, oh, what's a good time for us to come over so we can go see the mountain and whatever. I say, anytime, just let me know so I can clear my schedule. So I made an effort so I can always feel I'm in control of my schedule. But that's without saying I do work into late night and do a lot of preparation and making sure the sooner I get to the office the next day, I know what I need to get done. I prioritize things and I always know when I want to get what's done. And so by doing that regularly, you can actually create those slots for the people you need to be there for. So that's kind of my story here.
So that reminds me of what Amy said, is to be organized. And not only are you organized with your company, but you do have to be organized with your life and your family.
And look, you can still go to heaven if you outsource your laundry and somebody makes your bed for you. I'm just saying, there's a lot of things that as women, especially in this community, we tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves that, if I don't make doilies for my handouts for my church class on Sunday, no, you're still going to go to heaven if you go buy something in the store. So just remember that, and it takes a lot of pressure off when you can remind yourself, the difference between being a good mom is not whether you made the bread or bought the bread, it's that there was bread on the table. So just figure out the things that matter when it comes to family life and then focus on those. So her time was quality time with their kid, not just, because there's a lot of stay-home moms that are absolutely miserable and hate being home with their kids, right? I mean, so it's like, it's all about how you handle it and the attitude you adopt with it.
Let me just give you another story. So I still enjoy having, most my kids move out, but I still, by now, but I still enjoy having them, back, to the house to have dinner together. And every single time my daughter would ask the question, what are you going to prepare? I say, I don't know. I will know 2 hours before the dinner. And so in the beginning, I feel a little bit pressure from her. It's like, are you going to put the pizza on again? But nowadays, I don't even need to worry because she will show up with food. And she will bring her friend show up with food. And so we always have this wonderful multicultural, dinner, because I will prepare something, they will prepare something. And so it really, it's how you want it and just kind of organize it that way and it will happen. So.
How many hours a week do you work? Be honest. Who wants to answer that?
Ridiculous, insane, stupid number. I don't even need to work. I do think it becomes an addiction, and I do think you have to control the addiction. I have an uncle that was an entrepreneur, and one of the things he said to me when I started is he said, set rules and then don't break those going into it about what your life will be. And I had certain rules, like I never was going to work on Saturday, Sunday. That was like my sacred downtime, especially Sunday. And I never once broke it, and I was never tempted to break it. But the rule of coming home for dinner on time, I broke it once and then I broke it forever, right? So I did learn from the hard way, which is usually how I learn, that if you stick to certain rules you set, you will always stick to them. And don't make apologies for them, but the ones you break, you're going to break them over and over. So I work too much. I'm still trying to set better rules. I'm an empty nester now. Like, what else are you going to do? Her and I are just going to go.
I don't even know. I don't count the hours. I think what it feels like to me is that I do try to take one day a week, typically it's a Saturday or a Saturday morning, and carve out time where there is no work. Otherwise, it's just one continuous work forever. But other than that, I've always felt that taking time off, whether it's a vacation or whatever, it's just a timing difference. The work doesn't go away; it just piles up. So I don't consider it a penalty to continue to work a lot of hours every week.
But it's funny because you say that, because you do have that flexibility. So, my daughter will always tell me, we've got kids in college and out of college, and I still have an 11-year-old, and she always says, Mommy, you work so much. And I said, but I'm not in an office from 8 till 5 seeing patients. I'm dropping you off at school, I'm picking you up at 3. Okay, yes, I have to take that phone call in the car for, 15, 20 minutes, but I have that flexibility.
Just add one thing. I did take a slight detour from being in entrepreneurial jobs or roles, and I actually worked for a fairly bureaucratic organization for about 5 years. I worked for the NCAA, and I have to tell you, those were some pretty miserable years. I knew my paycheck was going to come all the time. There was always, there was a lot of great things, opened a lot of doors, people knew how. But I'm telling you, the amount of hours that are so wasted. I know why that guy wrote that book, the Dilbert cartoons. Oh my gosh. I mean, there was the pre-meeting to the meeting and the post-meeting. Nothing really happened at the meeting. The perfect body style is a little teeny brain and a gigantic bladder so you can stay in meetings all day. I mean, the whole thing was a nightmare. So I'd rather work 80 hours a week where I think every hour that I'm working actually counts and I'm inspired by it and it makes sense and there's a reason to work. It's not just putting in the motions and logging in the time. So I don't know, the hours just fly by. I don't even count the hours.
When you get an ironclad bladder, man, that's something right there. So when you're an entrepreneur, they say that entrepreneurs have adult ADD because we have to multitask, right? And like your joke on the bathroom, right? You're multitasking. So how do you stay focused when the entrepreneur's life is so scattered? What do you do? What kind of techniques do you use to stay focused on, that big task that you need to accomplish or that big hire you need to make? What do you do to stay focused?
I take Concerta, it's an ADD med. That's true, actually. And it helps a lot because I think a lot of entrepreneurs do have ADD. That's what drives them to be entrepreneurs is the ADD because they just get bored fast and they want to solve problems all the time. So it's just naturally our tendency. But luckily I had a mentor who did at 27 tell me, you probably should take meds and it's helped tremendously. So I'm a big fan of that if you have the problem. But what I think I found is kind of what she had brought up. If you schedule stuff on your calendar, it happens. If you don't schedule it, it is never going to happen. And so I have found if I don't go in and block out schedule this time for dinner with this, or this time to go and take a walk, or literally I have to schedule everything or it is never going to happen on my calendar. And it's been amazing to watch people. I love being out of town now because people will leave you alone when they get that out of office reply that says I'm out of town. They'll figure out the problem they need to solve without you. It's really brilliant. And so I actually now take a lot more trips and go and do a lot more fun things because I'm like, they're going to figure it out while I'm gone. But it's nice that they do. And you don't say on your out of office, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. No, you say I am gone until this date. Feel free to reach back out to me after that date if you still need me. It's amazing what a little change in your out-of-office reply does with communication on what problems get solved while you're gone. So schedule it, block it out, and then take the time. Because I do actually think, look, our nature is to work too much, but some of the most creative thinking I have is when I'm outside of the office and I can step away from work. All of a sudden I get solutions for problems that I've been working on for months when I'm not thinking about those problems. So I do think it's really critical to have that balance of getting out. Not just for you personally, more for your creative business mind. Because I think I solve a lot of business problems when I'm out doing something unrelated to business.
Okay, meds, check. All right, schedule. Love it, I love it.
Lists. I have lists and I'm always crossing off and checking off and making lists.
Jennifer, what do you do to stay focused?
Actually, I also have a slightly different perspective of this topic. I actually, probably because I'm an engineer, so I actually feel I try to not to be too focused when I'm in the office because I don't want the employees, I have an open door policy, they can come to me, come to my door anytime. And I always tell them within 10 minutes, they never need to wait more than 10 minutes. For me to get to them. And I realized that I never even let them wait for a second. When they show up, I drop everything. I talk to them. I understand what's the issue, what I need to do, and we go, talk to whoever needed together or whatever. So, be honest with you, in the office, I try not to be too focused because I'm someone, if I say I'm going to get this done, I get into it and I get it done. And sometimes by burying my head into my desk, I feel I'm shutting people out. And so I actually try that, but like everybody else say that I totally agree. A lot of times, being away from work like, I always stay an hour later than most of the employees. And so, those quiet time, or, I do take a trip or I do those walks. A lot of times, those are the times you really clear your head, and all of a sudden it's like, why am I doing that? I really should be doing this. And so I make the decisions never hardly in my office. I feel like I always have those decisions made in those quality time. And making this really is just, it's must. So I always have a long, the way I do it is I like to list everything I can think of. I will think about every department and think about every person and making sure I'm covering everything. And believe me, on that list, I also include things I need to do for my dogs. I also include things I need to do for my mom. I need to include everything I need to do for my daughter. So it's everything. And then I will highlight those ones that need to be done, faster than others. And then for those I can put a date. I love those you can put the dates to it because then you know that's the date you get it done. So making this is absolutely necessary, and just work to check them off and yeah, I guess that's the goal that I do.
Yeah, I think it's important to have a system personally for you that works. Unfortunately, years and years and years ago when I first got started, someone I was working with got me addicted. Back then it was called Franklin Planners, but it was a system. It's probably similar to yours where you've got your long-term and short-term, and anything you didn't get done from one day carries forward, all sorts of things. And over the years those get developed, but I think having a system that you personally can manage yourself and your time is important. I also think, I agree with you, it's important when you're at work not to assume that your hours as the CEO in the office are going to be used for your own productivity or your own organization. No, you're there for the rest of the employees. So you have to have scheduled your time, most likely away from the office, to get your shit together, show up at work knowing what you need to get done that day, and then count on the fact you need some flexibility so you do have time in your day and you're not just harried and crazy, because that does not inspire confidence in any of your employees. The next thing is, if your business is mature enough and you have a good team around you, make sure they're organized as well. So in our company, we have a Monday morning meeting. All the managers have to get me their revenue forecast by Friday night. They have to get me their weekly update. Everyone's limited to 5 priorities, plus a few key updates. They have to get those to me. I have to send them out by Saturday. Monday morning, it's a 1-hour meeting to go over it. So they're focused and organized. Whether they have their own long laundry list or not, it doesn't matter. And we've got 5 on our management team, 3 men and 2 women. We all think things a little differently, but if you get everyone sort of on the same system, then you're all pulling in the same direction. So being organized in your own personal life and not being ADD doesn't help, or not being scattered, doesn't help you if your key management team is all over the place as well.
And I'm going to ask one more question, and then we'll open it up to the audience. So audience, if you have a question, think of it, and we'll use the microphones. But my last question for you, when it comes to partnering with other people or co-founding with other people or hiring for your C-level executive team, think about some of the things that you look for, and have you hired women to be in those roles? And what can you give advice to other people who are maybe looking for C-level people in their organization? What are you looking for and why? And what have you done in those positions before? And maybe what have you done that's worked, and maybe what hasn't worked?
I would say for me, the mistakes I made were when early on, someone came in and they had all these fancy degrees and had been to all these fancy schools. I immediately was like, oh, they must be smarter than me and really smart people. I'm going to hire them, and found out that was a mistake. To be totally honest and frank, their education that they'd had did not necessarily relate to how smart they were going to be. A lot of times, the more education someone had, the less they knew how to think out of the box, which was an interesting dynamic to learn. So I think you have to be really careful how much weight you put on those things. I think they matter, but I think you also have to not just assume because they got a degree they're somehow brilliant in their job. That they don't always relate, let's just put it that way. I think the other thing that I found was that if your management team thinks they're better than other people, nobody wants to work with somebody who thinks they're better than them. So making sure you hire people with humility that don't see themselves as, oh, I'm more important than, or, I mean, I did something really kind of different in my company. All of my chief level executives got the exact same salary and the exact same amount of stock. There was not a differentiator based on CFO, COO, whatever it was. I know that's really unique, but it was really important to me that they knew that they were all equally important to me, right? That they all matter just as much. And it takes away some of the arrogance factor by nature when you balance those out. So that's just, something kind of unique that I did that worked really, really well in our organization. And there was not this sense of you get paid more, therefore you should do more than me, right? It kind of changed that mentality where it was kind of like, we're all equally in this, don't screw us over by not doing your part, right? But I think hiring for their values, you know, you can have we had very diverse religious backgrounds, very diverse upbringing backgrounds. We had men and women on the executive team. There were a lot of differences there, but we all had the same value system of what we were willing to put as most important, and we weren't afraid to call each other out. So hiring people that, if you hire a bunch of people that are just going to say yes to you, you will never get better as a leader. So I needed people that were strong enough to call me out on my crap, right? And to say, no, I actually think you're wrong. I want them to do it in a respectful way, just like I want to do it to them in a respectful way. But finding people that are going to help you be a better leader because of the fact they're willing to give you honest feedback and they're willing to take the honest feedback from you is critical. So those were, I think, some of the keys to finding the right executive team.
And I think the other thing too is to really understand your strengths and weaknesses and match people to you and to other people in your co-founder or co-founders, and really understand. So one of the things that happens when you go to the VCs, they really look at the management team, and it's really critical who you have sitting there with you. And very same experiences, we were wooed by pedigree and the names of schools when we hired our CEO, and it really did not transfer to being on the job and trying to raise money. But look at the gaps that your company has. You know, you may not need a chief commercial officer now, but if you grow and you start to sell the product, you're going to need that CC, that chief commercial officer. So it's understanding your company and where it's at.
I also look at one additional thing in addition to as my colleague said here. One more thing I definitely emphasize is although they have something they can definitely offer, which is something weaker. Also make sure after all those we have the same common values, and so hardworking, the competence, and some of these common values we have, because that's what is going to move us together. And then one more thing I always make sure is, and I told my team all the time, I always tell them, if one day I decide not to come in, or if one day I cannot come in, I don't want this company to miss me at all. I want whatever I do, my team can cover everything. So that's something I emphasize, because you just never know this, it's going to happen. And on top of that, I want the team to feel, really they are together to carry the one weight, and I'm not someone taller than them, or the sky fall and hold it. So so that's something I also emphasize.
Yeah, all of that guidance and advice is I agree with. I was trying to think of something that might be a slightly different perspective on something that happened to me or is happening right now. When you're small, it's harder to attract sometimes the very best talent. You don't have a lot of cash. You might not have the ability. Or you might not even, so anyway, we hired people, and because I felt that I needed to give them C titles, we did. now we've outgrown some of those people, and it's been very painful to take a C-level person that you still want to keep in the company and give them a VP title and bring in a new C-level person that you absolutely have to bring in order to get where you need to go. And this isn't just window dressing to raise money. I mean real substantive people. So
Let's give them an upper title.
you can all, it is. And so if I could have done it over again, I think I could have attracted what was then my chief marketing officer, who then finally had to leave the company because she couldn't handle the fact that she had to step down when we brought in a new CMO. I wish I hadn't given her that title now in hindsight. The pressure to feel you have a C team when you're really small, you could probably still show up with your management team raising money from angels or anyone, even if you gave them VP titles, so you don't have to take something away. And I guess the last thing is, as I get older, I realize all cliches come true. And the cliche that you should hire people smarter than you is true.
What
And
makes you smart? Is by hiring smart people.
but it is true. You really need to do that always. And I think the other thing is that it really is about the management team. When we hear that VCs or investors really look hard at the management team and we sort of slough that off, or I've done that in the past, because I didn't want to face the hard truths that I had to move some people aside, some of whom had worked with me at other companies, who I had convinced to come with me and help push this heavy rock up this hill. And in order to get some funding recently, I had to move them out. And I would say that having the right people, even though that was a very painful thing, we are going to go faster and to bigger places now that I've brought in some really top talent. So it was very painful, but it's worth it to hold out for the very best talent that you can.
All right, let's take 5 minutes and open it up for audience questions, and then we'll take a break. Any questions from the audience? Over here, yeah.
I wanted to just go back to the percentage of women that are getting VC funding. I live in Napa Valley, very close to Silicon Valley, and one of the things that I have found that's interesting, and I'm curious to get your opinion on, is that when asked how many women applicants are rejected, the number's actually not that high. And so I'm getting the impression that there just aren't a lot of women applying for VC funding, which is what has been alluded to. But I wondered if anybody happens to know of the women that are applying for VC funding, what percentage of them are actually getting funding? And are they maybe better off with the angel groups? I've not had much with angel groups at all, but I don't think it has anything to do with being a woman. I just was curious about those two things.
All I can opine on is the angel funding, and that is that it is a lot of work and a lot of pitching, but I have found great success. We raised close to $10 million with angel funding, and what I found is once you find the right group that your business appeals to, it's a little bit like lemmings, and when you get some of the key ones in, the rest of them come, and you can go back for a second bite and a third bite as long as you're showing progress and offering the right vehicle or investment. So maybe it is access to angel money that keeps some people away from VCs, but that doesn't really answer your question of how many are applying.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers we see are low, and like I said, the ones that get turned down are usually because it was more of a lifestyle business, not so much of we're investing in things that are mostly VC type deals as opposed to angel deals, but a lot of it is because they were starting a company that didn't fit the model of raising money that can get a 3 to 5 year return. So, or some of them are hobby businesses, right, that aren't meant to become large businesses, so it's actually not smart for them to take money because the reason they're doing it is not the reason a VC would be doing it. And so, but we don't see a tremendous number of women deals. We just don't. And I'm a woman and everybody knows me in Utah, so to me it says there's not as many deals out there that are coming from women.
Any other questions? Right, in the middle.
Sorry, 2 quick questions. First, I like what you said, Amy, about the culture in your company. If you're a telecommute company, and how can you create that same employees love each other, family feel when your business model is in your telecommute?
For us, because we had offices, we had 4 different locations in 2 different countries. And so we had, in essence, telecommuting situations, we weren't all together. And we found by using simple tools like our intranet, where we had the postings on there, the discussion board was company-wide, the idea board was company-wide, doing those kind of things, and then profiling the people in the different offices so everybody kind of got to know each other that way. Doing those little things made a huge impact and helping each other. For example, we had offices in India, helping our people in the U.S. understand some of the traditions in India and some of the holidays they had there and why they had them. It's little things, helping them understand the cultural differences about each other and the way we do things led to a more united feeling. Because if people didn't understand it, it's a lot of times led to a competitive feeling of why do you get this and we don't get that, right? Little things like buying tea for our employees in India, and we didn't provide tea here in Utah, right? But in India, if you don't provide tea, you're going to have a riot on your hands. So it was like, we had to, right? It was like a very culturally important thing to them. And so a lot of it is helping each other understand those things. And so doing the communication portal, having a portal where you can have open discussion going on between people is absolutely critical, especially in that environment, because it is nearly impossible to keep people feeling like they're part of it. And especially now with the growth of home workers, which my big struggle with home workers was always the fact that it was harder culturally to keep them part of the loop. If you're not there in the office, you don't hear what's going on, you don't have time to catch them up. And so again, using the online board where it was literally their system forced them to start their day on the homepage and read what was there on the homepage before they could go into any other application. And it was a way to really force keeping everybody on the same page. But using those tools is critical, especially when you're not together in the same space.
Should we just have one more question right here in front?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to just say, this is not a rebuttal. It's an amen. Because what you said has rung true. I've, been most of my career in the entrepreneurial world. And I see, and then working with businesses, women-owned and men-owned business. The women-owned businesses that come into us to get assistance, they tend to follow through much more than men do. The last Jennifer here has asked for assistance a number of times from our office. I mean, she's a lot smarter than we are. But she comes and asks for assistance. Men tend to not. They can do it all, of course. But I also want to say too, my son worked for your company just before you sold it. And from a woman-owned business to, I believe the company at the bottom was a public company, male-owned type of thing, kind of sucked the culture out of it. He didn't stay a whole lot longer after that. But anyway, yeah, just amen. I think what you guys have said, this place should be more men in here to learn something.
I think we're rolling on it, so we'll share this, I'm sure. Well, let's do one more question back there, and then we'll take a...
What strategies do you use to evaluate opportunities for your business and for your personal growth? Sometimes trouble setting criteria and end up, how do you say no to, do you have, I don't know how to ask this, what is your criteria, what is the strategy around opportunities?
So I'll chime in on that. I think part of it is getting back to being organized and thinking where you want to be. So what do you want to look like in 6 months or a year? And I mentor and I work with a lot of young women who are entrepreneurs starting up their companies, and they wrestle with exactly what you're talking about. What's our strategy? And that's where it's going to come from you thinking about what you want, talking to your board, having an aligned message, an aligned strategy, and then working to get there. And in some ways not being distracted. So it's really what are you going to look like in 6 months or a year?
I was going to say, I think for women, one of the hardest things for us to do is say no. We are like so burdened with the guilt of saying no to anyone, anytime, ever. Seriously, trust me, this is my kids' heart on this all the time. I hate saying no. I always want to help everybody. I think we're kind of against that whole, we're bred to be mothers kind of a thing, where it's like we kind of have those instincts naturally, and so it is hard. And one of the things I had to do for myself and for my employees to help them as well is we would put, for example, on our sales guys' cubicles a sign that said, is what I'm doing right now leading to a sale? Right? That question is what I'm doing right now leading to a sale. If you're in, operations and delivery, is what I'm doing right now leading to a faster turnaround time or a better experience for my customer? It's asking yourself that question. So whatever it is the goal is for you, is what I'm doing right now leading me to that goal? And if it's not, you have to give yourself permission to say no. And it's hard. It is so hard. I apologize every time I say no. See, I can all talk about not apologizing, and I do it. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Because we do feel bad, right? It's part of what makes us human, though. So, but I feel like what gives you the permission to say no is knowing exactly what you're trying to accomplish. And then limiting yourself to, if it cannot accomplish this, then I shouldn't be doing it. Because we do get distracted by a million things and a million, in your day you could turn on some song on the radio, right, as you're driving to work. Is that leading me where I want to go, or is listening to a TED Talk going to do more for me to get me where I want to be? It's like balancing those questions, right? And if I'm at a soccer game looking at my kid, is that getting me to be a better mother? Well, yeah, so that's okay. Right? You see what I'm trying to say? So it's like you have to know what it is you're trying to accomplish. And as a boss, is this thing I'm doing leading me to be a better boss? Right? Is her being heads down, not talking to the employees, making her a better CEO? The answer to that is no. She should be delegating those things and then just being available to be the kind of parent to the people working for you is what it is in essence. So I just think it's knowing that question is what I'm doing right now, leading to X, whatever X is.
And if you are in a leadership role, you're going to set that example, and people are going to follow you. And you're going to be able to dictate, navigate, and say, okay, follow me this way, because you're the leader.
And definitely, have advisory group, so you can check your decision with. I feel that's important because you need that third set of eyes, the second and third sets of eyes looking into that one critical decision, because after all, it's a strategy. So you want to take those seriously and really have somebody else who is always on your side to take a look of what you are facing, what you are making a decision on.
Jennifer, can you overlay?
Oh, yeah.
And being on your side doesn't mean they're always telling you you're right. A lot of times being on your side is them saying you're not doing this the right way. And knowing that it's people that you can trust, that they're telling you that because they care about you, not because they're trying to hurt you or damage you. That's where a board of directors is critical. Having a good, people are afraid of a board. Don't be afraid of a board, and you shouldn't be afraid of your investors. If you are, you shouldn't take money from them. You need people who you believe are in it for your success, and that they're going to tell you when you're wrong so you will be more successful when you're right.
Yeah, and get people that are aligned with your vision. And the board is really critical, because we tend to be scared of our board and we shouldn't be. They're there to support us. They want us to be successful. That's why they're helping you. And you're going to see as you meet people, some people are going to help you more from the strategic, and then there's going to be operations. And you need to look at and understand people's strengths.
Diversity around you, get different diverse strengths around you that will tell you different things.
Okay, I hate to cut this off, but I want to invite Annette up here. She's going to lead us into the break and give us a little testimonial from last year. And let's give these ladies a round of applause.